This is Barbara Lange. I am the CEO of Kaiba 121 and also on the voluntary secretariat of Greening of Streaming. And I'm back again to have one of our early members of the organization to talk to today, Kristen Bullitt from Humans Not Robots. Kristen, great to see you. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your and Humans Not Robots.
Hi, Barbara. How are you doing? You well?
I'm doing well. Yes,
Well, that's
thank
really
you.
good to hear. So yeah, I'm, as you said, Kristen from Humans Not Robots. We are media analytics, and we're very sustainability focused in the work that we're doing. I used to work for large media companies. I've spent 20 years doing this, as you know, we all have long experiences in this industry, and the amount of waste and excess that seems to be accepted as organizations have raced forward with feature sets is fascinating, is frustrating, and is often not understood and often not cared about as well. So having worked with those large organizations, I left that business to start Humans Not Robots to really focus on helping large media organizations reduce their waste. Now, on the one part, it saves them money and they like that idea, but actually, from a personal perspective, focus on sustainability was very important. And I know we have shared principles on this. That's certainly something that the industry hasn't been able to focus on itself very well.
Yeah. And I find in my work, as I talk to organizations, one of the first questions that I get, so I'd like to hear your answer to it, is what does sustainability mean in media exactly? I mean, what are we talking about? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, and there's plenty of numbers bandied around, and we can decide whether we believe them completely or not. The BBC had a really nice documentary called Panorama earlier this year.
Yes,
That was
yes.
talking about the waste and the cost and the environmental impact of data centers. Now, they were looking at cloud data centers, but it was fascinating to look at the sheer scale and volume of some of these data facilities and the power consumption within those. The parts that were particularly interesting to me was the amount of water that is used, particularly in North America, to cool data centers, and how that's having catastrophic knock-on effects. And video delivery is a huge part of internet services. If you look at the numbers, video is roughly 80% of our internet utilization, and that's only increasing. So we play a huge part in that responsibility.
Yeah. And I think most people, believe, as perhaps I was early on too, and when you don't see it, it's not tangible. So the internet, right? You think, it's somebody else's problem, and I can plan not to use single-use plastic on production, but when the real bulk of the energy usage is what you can't really see, and I think that's sometimes problematic. But it's good that we have an organization that's helping to look at that. So talk to us a little bit about your activities as they relate to streaming and how you came about participating in Greening of Streaming. And I'm going to have a sip of coffee because it's cold where I am.
I can't remember exactly how I first met Dom, but we started Humans Not Robots at a similar time as Greening of Streaming started. So as soon as we started to go out there to look for organizations and companies who might be able to help us, we were kind of starting to make a rise at the same time as Greening of Streaming were. And that was great for us because the synergies were very strong immediately, and Greening of Streaming's working groups were starting to emerge. And there was a really obvious place for Humans Not Robots within that. So we sit behind working group 4 as the data point, as the data store, rather.
Well, time out. Tell us what working group 4 is. Remember, our audience may not know.
Well, this is very true. So working group 4 is about measuring the energy impact of large event streams, live sports, and other well-consumed events. And
the English Premier League where you are, and the Super Bowl where I am, right?
Yeah, pretty much that. And sometimes the other way around as well. But it's about looking at the CDNs and the encoders and the on-premise equipment and saying, actually, what's happening there? What's the energy consumption of those services, and how are they affected? How's that hardware affected based on when we all turn our TVs on and watch the Super Bowl? And what does that mean? And ultimately, can we do anything about that? So we're taking data points from member orgs and bringing that alive.
So, in a 5 minute, not 5 minute, 5 second, maybe not 5 second. How about 30-second answer? What's your elevator pitch around what humans, not robots? How does it fit into that data analytics piece?
Well, for Humans Not Robots as a pitch, we help large businesses reduce their environmental impact by looking at their technology footprint and telling them what they can do to reduce that.
Okay.
From a
Using real-time data, right? I'm sorry, real-time data and right.
So much of carbon footprints is heavily estimated, some very high level estimates, and we're providing far more accurate measurements against that. Everything works on estimations, right? But we're plugging straight into AWS and Azure and GCP and saying, you as an Azure customer, we know exactly what you're using and what that means from a carbon footprint perspective.
Cool. So I would think that a lot of media companies are quite eager to, I guess the first step is knowing that they have a sustainability issue that they need to address, number one. And then number two, having good data points. They'd be really interested in talking to you about that to get to the bottom of the real figures, right?
Everybody knows that measuring is very, very difficult. And I think that means it's a challenging problem to start to look at. Also, as you said before, looking at plastic cups and business class travel, they're easier wins. And because it's still a nascent space, people are still planning on how they're going to achieve that. But absolutely, with inbound legislation like Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which, by the way, is really hard to say every single time.
So CSRD, you can say CSRD.
CSRD is a really good impetus to push some of those organizations to actually take action. And they do want to take action, but it's complicated.
That's right. Yeah, I see the same thing. Well, that's great, and I think collectively working with Greening and Streaming with all the other member organizations, even those who haven't joined yet, are interested in learning that. So the more that you are out there talking about it, I think soon you may even have some competition as others jump on board, but hopefully not too soon. So let's. I always like to end with a sort of a blue sky question, and so more like, okay, if you could do anything, if you had the control switch to really make the biggest impact in terms of sustainability or energy consumption in media, where would you start? How would you achieve that? What do you think?
Let me start with what would I do? So look at it from something more relatable. If I could look into your home and turn off devices that you weren't using automatically, and that had no impact on you, that's what I believe we should be doing. All of these data centers turned on all of the time. Why can't we just turn some of these machines off? That makes a huge amount of sense. And actually, I think with what Humans Not Robots are doing, that's what we're trying to do. It's very complicated. It's very, very complicated. And Mr. Amazon and Mr. Microsoft and Mrs. GCP, they're not going to let us hit those switches too easily, right?
Yeah. But and it's actually kind of what's in some respect, it's what's old is new again. And in years gone by, you would be very conscious about switching off lights and switching off any device you're not using. But we've gotten so perhaps lazy about it. And again, I think this concept that it's not tangible sometimes, so you don't pay so close attention. But you can start pretty basically.
It's not so tangible, but also I think the story of renewable energy, when Amazon is saying, oh, your services are running on renewable, that puts it to the back of people's minds further still. And actually, we have a finite amount of energy. So just because it's green energy doesn't mean we should not try and use less of it.
That's a very good point. That's an excellent point. That's great. Is there as we close out this conversation, is there anything else you'd like to mention to our listeners and viewers about either the group or Humans Not Robots or the topic of sustainability?
I think more people should be thinking about sustainability. I do see a small group who care passionately,
Yeah.
and there's always a risk of it being an echo chamber in that respect. But actually, it's good for business to be more sustainable. It saves money in our pockets, and it's what our consumers want. So we should all
Yeah.
be absolutely aligned to that.
That's great, and it's been great to meet this group of people so passionate about it. It's been a lot of fun, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I agree.
Well, thank you, Kristen. I really appreciate you joining this little video concept here, and thanks so much. And I'll see you at another working group meeting, I'm sure, soon.
Thanks, Barbara.